And I know you worked with her, Ms. Rosales. You know, I commend her because she's always had this Blue Dolphins, that program, for years. And I think that a lot of your swimmers, you know, have come out from that program, and some of them also from our middle schools. You know, I was at the swim meet this Saturday, and one of our students broke record. She's going to state. And I believe, you know, she's a hard worker. She puts a lot of effort. And a lot of our athletes, they have the talent. We just need to work with them and bring it out and be able to give them what they need. And you know, from a parent, 3 boys, they're all athletes, all 3 of them, very competitive. And I know that there's students out there that it's just a matter of, you know, bringing them into the program, giving them the opportunity. And I just don't want to see programs, you know, being reduced on time, or, you know, the time frame that they practice. On the contrary, we can offer more to them. I know that coaches coach because they have a passion. They either like the sport, or they did it when they were young, and it's just in them, you know. I mean, I live with one myself. Can't get off the golf course. But, you know, I'm telling you that I know that if we can have a way to find how we can be able to go out there and put the programs in place so we can give more time for these students to be able to be more competitive, become stronger athletes. That's what I want to, you know, I know they have the potential. I have another program that before you were an AD, we were discussing it, and we said that maybe we would bring it in hopefully sometime soon, you know. I have a package here that I want to give to you, and it won't cost us any money, but it kind of bothers me where I see that Westlaco students, Los Fresnos, Gregory Portland, Laredo United, PSJ Memorial, they have all these top football players doing their squats, their bench pressing, and because apparently they have a weightlifting program. And it doesn't cost much. We have this high tech, I mean not high tech, but we have all this equipment in our gyms, and if we can build up our athletes and just putting the people to just be there to oversee them and work with them, I would like to see that also as well. You know, if we can implement this, because, you know, I know that other athletes are bigger, heavier, and what are they doing differently? Well, I went to do some research, and some of those top football players, you know, I compared them to my son, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, they are bigger because obviously they're doing a program that's working for them. So if we can please, Mr. Chavez, I ask you from the bottom of my heart, I know you're a coach at heart. I know that you want to be successful. But if we can all just work together, and I ask administration to please share this with you. And Ms. Powers, if you can, I know you worked very hard at the middle school program trying to keep these programs. I know how hard it was for transportation to pick up some of our students. But we can't afford that. Like Mr. Cortez says, his daughter did well. So what if his daughter was to be given 4 more weeks as she becomes a middle school athlete? That would build up her endurance. That will build up her ability to become a better athlete.
Ms. Garcia, if I could suggest, you know, you bring up items for athletic budget programs. We're right in the middle of beginning our budget talks. Some of these agenda items were probably better sent to committees as opposed to discussing them here. I would suggest that maybe you attach something to our next budget meeting. Our current agenda is already out, so you can't add it to that one, but we're going to have several before we adopt budget, and that is probably the more appropriate forum for an item like this, because I understand we're looking at a big gap in our budget, and I know that Mr. Reese and Mr. Fuller are working around the clock to make sure that we can end up in the black and not in the red. So that would just be my recommendation. Does anybody have anything else to add before we move on?
Before, how much money do you spend in football? How much money do we spend? Not you person, but how much money? I want to know figures. How much money do we pump into football?
On total or supplies or meals?
No, total. Give me a figure. 1 million, 2 million?
No, I would think for each school, well, if you divide it by 6 or 5 schools, I'd say about $60,000 per school.
And that's not including our middle schools, right?
No, no, that's just the high schools. With supplies, meals, transportation, fees, dues, maintenance, contract work, maybe a little bit more.
Could you do me a favor, Mr. Springsteen? Get me that I asked for that report to see in detail, and I didn't get that report today.
That
That's what
won't-
I wanted.
Just to also let you know that we've already had conversations about the powerlifting. I know you've got it here and you wanted to give that out, and we've already talked about that and about the strengthening programs. So I wanted you to know that this was something that I had told y'all that I would bring forth with the new athletic director, and this is something that we have talked about. And the budget itself, do you have a copy of that?
By the way, Mr. Chavez, I haven't been by to visit with you, but congratulations
On your job?
on your
Oh,
new assignment,
thank you very
sir.
much, Mr.
Congratulations.
Cortez. It's,
Are you endeavor?
I'm enjoying it, getting my feet wet, learning a lot, and I love coaching, and I love working with kids, and this is a different avenue for me, but I'm glad I have the opportunity, and I was given the opportunity to do this.
We're sure
Thank you
you're gonna
very
do a
much.
fine job.
Mr.
I
Cortez?
guess, yes, Ms. Peña, closing?
In closing, I wish you much success in the
very
program
much.
and that you're the head up, and I look forward to wonderful things from you.
Appreciate
I expect
that.
nothing less, and I'm sure you
Work
will.
hard for it,
make- make
for the
me-
kids
make
and
me
for the
proud.
district, for all the schools, and keep it equal for everybody.
And like Ms. Presas, I just wanted to share, I've had several parents throughout the year in office that have come to me and asked me, why is this program only in the summer? I want my child to be able to do this during the school year. And I would like to ask Mr. Springsteen to look into, see what we can do.
We could put a
There's a
program
will,
together
there's
with,
a way, and let's
with
hope we can-
numbers and set numbers and present it to Mr. Springsteen and see if we can go from there.
I would really appreciate
That
that.
would
I
be-
really
Thank
do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Item
Thank
9?
you, Coach.
Presentation, review and discuss district-wide portable buildings, board member request.
Ms. Garcia?
Yes. I'd like to share with the board that I went through the district and I've noticed that some of the portables are vacant. And I'd like to ask administration if those portables are being used as storage, since there's no students. And the reason why is because, and I requested for a report, and you gentlemen, we all have them here, Ms. Peña. And what caught my attention is that we were told that these portables are being insured. So if some of these portables, the deterioration of the portables don't seem to be worth more than $20,000. Those portables, and I'm going high on the portables. And because of the reason that we're insuring them, it bothers me that we have so many vacant portables and we're not going to go very far. Hannah High School has 4 portables that they're being worked on. And if I'm not mistaken, we're putting in like 200,000 plus on those portables. But then we're going to build a wing and a few months later, so that money, the portables, what are we going to do with them after we refurbish them? I just don't want to be spending money that we're going to have to, remove them later, and really nobody wants portables. Everybody complains about portables. But my concern is that, one, we're insuring buildings that are vacant and they're in bad shape, because I got to see some of them. 2, we're refurbishing some of these portables that only, I guess, administration knows how long we're going to keep them after we repair them. But wouldn't we be better off if we can get rid of the ones that they're not using anymore and get something out of it? Because I don't want to be insuring buildings that are vacant and they're not worth more than $20,000. I went to go check these portables, and believe me, they're not worth $20,000. And it bothers me because my insurance went up this year for the windstorm, and I have a concern. And I checked some that were right there by Eagle Drive. You have like 1, 2, 3, 4, like about 6 or 7 of them vacant. As you go into the parking lot behind the tennis courts, all that little row. So what are we doing? Are we, insuring buildings that are just vacant and they're not even worth $20,000? And, we're spending money here and spending money there. And Mr. Cortez, you're right. We might be on the negative. Well, this is why we have to make decisions that we cannot afford to have those things going on.
You know, in my experience and having gone around the district, Ms. Garcia, I can tell you that there's a list of schools that have requested portable buildings from other campuses who have vacant buildings, but because of all the fees involved in moving them, Mr. Arteaga's office department hasn't been able to move them. I know that there was a building that didn't look very pretty, but the foundation was so solid that Mr. Arteaga felt that it would work great at our facility out on Morrison Road at the back, Brownsville Academic Center, because that school in its initial inception was programmed to have a vocational building. And to this day, it hasn't been put out there, and they've identified one of these double or triple long units at El Jardín Elementary that they're going to somehow relocate to the Brownsville Academic Center, and it'll be used as a vocational building for those students. So I know that some of these things are being done by the district. I will agree with you, though, that if some of these are deteriorated to the point that they're in disrepair, then, you know, Mr. Arteaga's office should look at declaring them as obsolete and surplus and auctioning them off if those type of units in fact exist. You know, every time we get a report of what's out there, but never in the state that they're in. And if Mr. Arteaga's office unfortunately had more resources, they could probably provide us with a needs assessment on all these portable buildings. And, you know, I guess I would have to agree with Ms. Garcia that these things need to be better monitored so that we can find if there's any of these buildings that in fact can be removed from our rolls just because of the state that they're in. But I will tell you that they do their due diligence. I've seen it firsthand with some of the facilities that they move around through the district. So I will give credit to the administration for that. I don't know if there's something you want to add on that, Mr. Springston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Arteaga, I know you're here somewhere. I know that you were sitting in the back being kind of quiet. That worried me. I do know for a fact that, you know, for the last several years that I've been with the district, we have moved quite a bit of portables, and depending on the growth of a certain area. And also, I know that when we did the bond issue back in 2004 and it came to reality in 2006, that we had made some declarations that we wanted to build some of these new schools so that we could actually get rid of some of these portables. And we're just about to that reality with some of those portables that we have on the northwest side of town. And to say also that we have some portables that, yes, that we do need to declare as obsolete because they are probably not repairable. And Mr. Arteaga and I have discussed those. Those things have to be brought before the board. And then he can go through and look at what we can keep, the items that are there as far as taking it down and or the possibility of sales. So these are just things that I wanted Ray to be up here because we are looking at these things. We do have schools that do lack, who may not have a certain center that would like to have a certain class or a certain center or a parent center that they would like to put in a certain location. And they would ask that for some of these portables that we have that we would pick up and move. But can you describe that process, sir, as far as what it takes to move a portable?
Mr. Arteaga, before you begin, let me just make a comment on something that just occurred to me. You know, we may not even, if you guys find that some of these buildings do exist and you declare them obsolete, I know that there's a process that we could do where some of these facilities can be put out on loaner. And the reason I mention that is because Noe Diaz from Niños Head Start has mentioned many times that they would, and I know that he's spoken with you in the past, Mr. Springston, and we have a current MOU with Niños Head Start. You know, how great would it be for us to have pre-K for everybody, you know, and these guys have a Head Start program. They have a lot of money. They're willing to come into some of our campuses. We've already got the facilities out there. If they're not being used, you know, lease it to them for $1 and have them have a Head Start program on those specific campuses, and we can service more kids, you know, as an alternative to actually having pay for them to be removed or demolished. They have funds to remodel these facilities that we are no longer in use of. You know, and I know we have a current MOU with them that gets renewed every year, and for God knows how many years, probably way before my time. I know they've been in existence for over 2 decades. So just as an option, Mr. Springston, Mr. Arteaga.
Good evening, Mr. Cortez, Mr. Springston, members of the board. And as I was walking up, Robert, one of my supervisors, said, yes, that's the best place to be, way in the back where nobody can see you. I guess Robert is right. There's a lot of factors that come into play when you talk about portables, and I might be out of line, but I'm going to discuss a few so you all will know. We have 398 portables district-wide. I can guarantee you that each one of those portables is being used. The only ones that right now that are empty, and by I mean empty, that not being used by students or not being used for storage purposes, or 14 that are sitting at Ituria, because Mr. Garza, who is now principal of Keller, was utilizing those until about 2-3 weeks ago, whenever Mr. Garza moved to Keller. The portables that are sitting here at the Hannah, the old tennis courts, we have 3 portables there that are being used by the special ed psychologists. We have 1 portable that is being used for storage by curriculum for language arts. We have 1 portable there that is being used by the reading and math department as storage. And we have another portable there that is being used by the science department. These are portables that are serving a need that is very real to the departments. Believe it or not, if you go to campuses and if you look for storage areas are very limited at every campus. And especially if you work for the curriculum department and they have hundreds of books that need to be stored. So all portables that we have are being utilized, and I would not agree that we get rid of portables at this time unless we have something to replace them with. I did a little research before coming to the meeting, and I checked with all the high schools, and primarily the high schools, because I know that's where most of the floating teachers, and you're familiar with floating teachers. And I also checked with the middle schools. I don't know of any elementaries that have teachers that are actually floating, but there's 122 teachers that are right now, as of today, floating at the high schools and floating at the middle schools. And as you all well know, that is not the ideal situation. I mean, anytime you have to float somebody throughout the day, it becomes a very stressful teaching situation or environment. So even though we have 398 portables, we still have these 122 teachers that are still floating around. So do we get rid of portables today, tomorrow, the day after? I know the district has always had as a goal to get rid of portables, to eliminate portables. And if the day comes when it's feasible to do so, I would be the first to agree, because I wouldn't have to deal with them. Of the 398 portables that we have, believe me, and Ms. Garcia is right, some of these portables are in a sad state of condition, but we refurbish at least 40 to 50 every year. And
that lasts about, what, 15 years?
the refurbishing will last about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then they deteriorate to a point where you have to go back and refurbish again. And you all are right. I agree with all the board that instead of portables, we need to build wings. And if you can get that done, more power to you. I am in 100% agreement if that can be done.
Well, I noticed you put lifespan of the portables right about 15 years, and that's just a brand new one or refurbished?
The fixed asset department is the one that assigns the lifespan of a portable. They say 15 years. However, we have portables. If you looked at the report that I gave you, and I gave you a report of all campuses, all portables, some of those portables were built in 1968. Some of them were built in 1956, and they're still being used because we continue refurbishing the portables.
Would you mind doing a study for us and do this with Ms. Fox, that once we get these schools opened up, the Manzano, I know we've already opened up Keller, and that freed up the portables that we had at Ituria, and some of the portables that we are freeing up because of the new high school that is going to open up, about the numbers that we may be able to use elsewhere, and or what we're going to do with those portables. And let's look at a study and see the feasibility of these things.
Yeah, that's something that I can get done. Just a little more information for you all. Like I said, we have 13 or 14 portables that are empty at Ituria because Mr. Garza moved over to Keller. Yet, and Ms. Fox is aware of this, and I just got a request for 13 portables from the parental involvement department, because of course now every campus has to have a parental involvement room. I also received about 2 days ago a request from another high school that they need 6 more portables. And I received another request from another high school, and I'm not going to give names, also asking for another 6. We only have 13 available, so that's 13 and 6, that's 19, so they're asking for 25. And I can go on and on and on.
And we won't, we'll do the
yeah,
simple evaluation,
right.
and we'll go back through Ms. Fox, and then we'll make those determinations accordingly.
Mr. Cortez?
Yes, Ms. Peña.
To answer the question that
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Springston asked, the lifespan is 15 years. His question was, the lifespan is 15 years from when it was first built, or 15 years from being refurbished? And being built in 1956 was finally something's older than I am. Answer that question.
The question is the lifespan? Yes, the lifespan, if you were not to do anything to it portable, yes, 15 years.
So it's 15 years, no refurbish
No
included.
refurbishing.
Once you refurbish, you extend the lifespan of
And
that building.
another 15 years if you do an extensive refurbishing of the, mostly what we do is we go in, we'll change the floor tile, we'll paint the walls, we'll replace any sheetrock that's broken, we'll work on the roof, repair windows, and that'll keep that portable going for another 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Mr. Cortez,
Mr. Science.
you recently had a conversation with me that some conference that you went to in Washington DC, and you came up with a pretty good idea of replacing a lot of these ports. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, about 2-3 weeks ago, I was in DC for the Federal Relations Network conference, and I was able to find out that this BISD is going to qualify for an additional $26 million in the qualified school construction bonds, because there's a direct allocation, Mr. Arteaga, for the 100 largest school districts, and it's going to be equal to what we received in 2009, but because we didn't do it soon enough, we weren't able to use all the monies, and under the advice of bond counsel and the underwriters and financial advisors, I think we unfortunately lost some of those monies. And so right now I've been working with Rosa Garcia from Congressman Ruben Hinojosa's office, and Veronica, I think Duran is her last name, from Congressman Hinojosa's office, and Degra Rigsby, Federal Relations for National School Board Association, and they're getting me compiling some information on some facilities monies that are out there, some that we directly get an allotment for just by virtue of our size in comparison to other districts in the nation, and others that we would qualify for simply because of our Title I status, and some of those are the Qualified Zone Academy bonds, and then there was Build America monies that were out there, and some green monies to retrofit your lighting and all of these other things. And I've been in communication with Mr. Springston about it, but until I get more information from Congressman Ruben Hinojosa and Congressman Ortiz and NSBA, then I guess we'll sit down and formulate a plan and kind of roll it out until we can see exactly what the district can stand to benefit from it. But just at first glance, I think in 2010 we're going to qualify for $26 million that we're going to have to figure out a plan to use. And these wing additions to remove these portable buildings seems like a perfect place to start. But again, I'll leave that to administration to decide at a later time, once we're 100% certain that these monies are actually going to be made available to BISD.
Let me give you a little bit more information before I leave. So I'm concerned about portables, so I asked myself the question, what will it cost BISD to get rid of all 398 portables? An approximate number. Last year, facilities built a 12-room wing at Hudson for $1,307,000. This is a wing with 12 classrooms, boys' restroom, girls' restroom, and a restroom for faculty. Nothing else, not a library, not a cafeteria, just a simple wing, $1,307,000. So I took 398 divided by 12. It gives me 33 times $1,307,000. You're looking at $43 million to get rid of 398. And of course, when you consider building wings for the high schools, when you consider building wings for the middle schools, Now it's gonna cost you a little more because you're looking at science rooms, biology rooms, chemistry, specialized equipment. And that's only the construction, that's not even considering furniture to begin with. So I would dare to say you're looking at $60-70 million to get rid of the 398 portables and replace them with actual wings.
You're saying,
Looking for money. We
So-
think we're gonna find some.
if we get these $26 million, we can probably get rid of
Of half of the portables.
about- or about a third about.
And that'd be great. If we can get those monies, that would be a blessing to BISD.
But there's also other issues, right, like roofing
Right.
and HVAC and all those kind of things too.
ADA upgrades, yeah.
Well,
okay.
the wing that was built at Hannah it was a complete wing with HVAC, everything else, except the furniture. Furniture was not included there on that price.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 10.
Presentation and discussion of attorney's fees spent in the 2008-2009 and 2009-2010 school years with a breakdown on the specific cases, departments, and/or major issues, e.g. Chapter 21, termination process. Board member request.
Mr. Sayas.
Yeah, well, the reason I had brought up this issue is, Ms. Presas had, mentioned some numbers last time, that she had done some research on, how much, was she considered as a district that was equivalent to our district, and what they had done as far as what attorney's fees were concerned. So I wanted to break down, but I really didn't get it that way of exactly, I wanted to break down kind of the way Margie had given it to us, like on issues and certain specific cases. We just got a whole bunch of numbers of totals. But regardless, the numbers that Ms. Preston had told us was that Corpus Christi had spent $130,000 on in-house counsel and $182,000 they had paid to outside counsel, making it somewhere about $310,000. Well, I actually went to Corpus Christi, and through some connections I had over there, they actually sent me the actual numbers that Corpus Christi actually uses. Right here, I have the document in my hand. And what they spend just on their in-house counsel salary in a year is $153,000. In addition to that, they have support personnel for that attorney of $53,000. And in addition to that, they have to have Medicare, group health insurance, workers' compensation, unemployment compensation, and teachers' retirement that they have to fund, and all those end up costing the district. Well, that number isn't $130,000, it comes out to $215,000 that they basically spend on their in-house counsel. Now, in addition to that, they budget $517,000 for outside counsel. And as of the year-to-date, as of February 12th, out of that budget, they had spent $386,000 on outside counsel. So that's $200,000 more than what Ms. Prestes had previously told us. And I just wanted the board to have an understanding of what the real numbers are. These are true numbers from the Corpus Christi Independent School District. And that $386,000 outside counsels look like they're in line to reach the $517,000 budget, or maybe even surpass it. So I just wanted to give clear indication of what attorney's fees are being spent. I also wanted to show the difference of how attorney's fees have changed from the previous years when we had a lot of expenditures on special education, and how they dropped immensely this year because we don't have those kind of expenditures. But that was basically my, what I wanted to bring out to the board, was that there are some true numbers here that reflect how another district of our size spends on attorney's fees.
It's, Mr. Cortez,
Garcia, yeah.
thank you for doing your research, Mr. Sayas. I really would like for you to maybe what I should do is ask you to do the research next time. But I got those numbers out of a conversation I had with somebody on the phone from Corpus Christi. But I have a concern because our billing for legal has been escalating. And yes, it's broken down into legal issues from the special ed department and legal issues that we have within the department. starting from grievances to lawsuits and so forth. And the thing is that what caught my attention a while back, and do you know who Christopher Jonas is?
Yes, I do.
He's out of Corpus Christi, sir, and he's an invalid. He is not, I know that he might have somebody in his office, but we made a deal, a settlement with somebody that supposedly he's still practicing law. And to my knowledge, he's no longer practicing it because he is an invalid. So that's what bothered me. There's a lot of things that I've seen, sir, and with all due respect, Mr. Sias, I know that attorneys need to get paid, and that's why they're in the business of being attorneys. But through time, when we first started, and when when I was placed as the chairwoman of the audit committee, there was a couple of things that I had already picked up, like when we would go pick up the other attorneys at the airport, and we were getting billed $160 just to go pick up a body at the airport. And I'm sure that you would agree with me that it would be a lot less expensive to lease a vehicle there instead of us having to have gone to go pick up the bodies at the airport. So that is why I've had so many concerns regarding the legal fee issues. Not that I have anything personal against Walsh Anderson or the staff. I just want to make it clear to you and the rest of the board members that we should have a concern. We should. And if I, at any point in time, came across that I just want to pick on legal issues, no. Because I've seen that in the past, we had less fees, and they've just escalated. But, I mean, rest assured, I'm not going to bring up the issues anymore until the board is completely ready to bring an in-house attorney and to make sure that we can save taxpayers' dollars. That's all.
I just wanted to, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Cortez,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just wanted to get the record straight so that if the board is inclined to go to in-house attorney, that, what numbers we're really looking at, because it's just not the salary of an attorney. It's, besides the salary of an attorney, it's the support staff that goes with them. It's the group health insurance, the Medicare, the workers' comp, the unemployment, the teacher's retirement. All those things are costs, they're all specific costs. And then you have other issues when you have employees of the district that you bring in. And those costs aren't costs when we have outside counsel. And I also want to say that even like Corpus Christi, even though they have an in-house attorney, they're spending quite a few dollars on outside counsel. It's just, unfortunately, when you have a district of our size, that it brings a lot of issues, especially when you have 7,500 employees, you got 49,000 students. There's all kinds of things that happen. Employment issues.
It's been a bit of an unusual year and a half or so, and so some of these costs won't be recurring costs. And you're right, special ed legal fees have gone down, but some of these lawsuits are as a result of according to the petitions, board members giving information that's dealt in executive session. So some of these lawsuits are spurred on by some of our own people on this board. And most of this is behind us. I think that we'll be able to move forward. I don't anticipate that these legal fees will continue to escalate, Mr. Sias. I think that Mr. Springstone's got a pretty good handle on what's going on in the district, and he's got a good pulse of what's happening in certain departments, and he's kind of taken it by the reins, and we'll see reduced numbers in this upcoming year and the years to come, I'm sure. Anybody else before we move on?
Yes.
Garcia, one more.
On these, I've noticed that there's a consistency of checks made and then checks voided. So are we paying attention to what we're doing, or we're just making out checks and then later on, 2 weeks later, we void them? And there was a check there that was made out for $28,688.48, and then it was voided. And then it changed from it went from 28,688.48 to 28,688. Was it because there was the cents difference? But then down here we go to another one, 2,138.50. The check was issued on 3/13, and then it was voided on 3/24. And it's just within 2 weeks difference. The other one prior also, you made out the check on 2/2, and it was voided on 2/19. You know, there's just a lot of things that when we get the billing, are we really reviewing what we're getting and paying close attention? There's another one over here, Walsh Anderson, 1/15 of 2010. Check was made, then check was voided. Another one, check made 3,408.52, check voided 3,408.52. I mean, you know.
Mr. Dries, could you give us some information on that? I mean, I think that'd probably be a better question for your department, Mr. Ford.
Mr. Cortez, Mr. Springston, board members, I don't have specific information for you on those items. I can get them for you for your Friday letter, though.
That's fine. That'll be good. Just an explanation, please, Mr. Reese.
Yes, ma'am.
Item number 11.
Presentation of policy EIE local.
Mr. Springston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I will defer to Ms. Monpass.
Mr. Cortez, Mr. Springston, members of the board. This is policy EIE local. We are requesting some changes due to the fact that the changes were actually made last year in the grading procedures in the course listing guides for 2009, 2010. However, the clarification really is needed for the board policy. And I'm giving you the example, especially at elementary. It's really not clear enough in board policy that students need to pass reading, language arts, math, science, and social studies, each with an overall average of 70. Parents use the online policy, they use the grading procedures also, but we just want to really make sure that it's very clear in the policy. And then in middle school, last year we had made a change. We were requiring middle school students who were going to be alternately promoted from 8th grade to 9th grade, we were requiring them to pass with an overall 60 in their coursework, and then their tax, usually 3 out of 4 tax courses. And that's really, the principals, everyone is in agreement that that is really more of a burden and is absolutely necessary. So we're got math and reading, tax for alternate promotion, as well as then the overall average of 60 or above. Most of the other changes that you see on the pages in the document are cosmetic. We did make a change also last year with regard to middle school career technology courses, and you can see that we are asking, or we have been asking for 1 semester of technology applications in 6th grade and 1 semester of career connections in 7th grade, which is really an excellent time for students to begin to focus and to really, really, start to direct their lives in a fun way. We have a lot of computer software programs that we have available for the students in labs. Also, the state has mandated 4 semesters of physical education in middle school, and principals met in several committee meetings, decided to place 2 semesters in 6th grade, and then, of course, a semester in 7th and 8th grade. So these are the changes that we're asking for in the policy. They are already in the grading procedures and in the course listing guide for this year.
Ms. Monfils, thank you for bringing these changes to the board. Mr. Springston, you want to add anything?
No, that just puts us right back on course, with our report cards, and puts everything back in line.
Ms. Pat, item B, standing board agenda items.
Board calendars.
Mr. Springston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, tomorrow we have our regular scheduled principals meeting that will be at 2 o'clock. We do have a budget meeting on the 18th that will be at noon. On the 19th, I do want to remind the public that we do have principal for the day. We have a lot of guests, a lot of volunteers, a lot of folks that are coming into our schools to be the principal of the day. And then we'll have a luncheon for those people. Is that at La Cantera? Is that at noon?
11:30.
11:30. On the 20th, we do have the dedication for Midi Pullum Elementary School. This is the first of our dedicational series that will be coming up for the 2 schools that we are opening. We do have our BISD All-City Band Contest at 7 o'clock at Lopez High School. The next week, of course, is the beginning of Charro Days Fiesta Folklorica that is coming up at Sam Stadium at 6:30. That's on the 22nd. We have our Charles Days Children Parade and early dismissal on the 25th. The 26th is the Charles Days holiday. And then, of course, we actually start National Nutrition Month in March. I can't believe that we're talking about March already, but we are. It's National Library Month, National Nutrition Month, and we actually start our first round of exit level test on March the 1st. And I am going to mention the second because it is a board meeting, but it's also Read Across America and Dr. Seuss's birthday.
Good day. And Mr. Springston and Mr. Cortez?
Yes, ma'am.
In advance, I will not be able to attend, and I apologize, the dedication for the Pullum Elementary. I will be in Dallas, for the state chess tournament. I think Mr. Cortez will be there also? Oh, okay, then I'll be there for both of us.
I'll be at
Also,
Nationals.
Okay,
Mr.
I won't be.
You will?
At Nationals. Go to Nationals.
Mr.
Cynthia?
Springston,
Yes, ma'am.
why are we making, having the meetings for the budget at noon? I got a couple of calls as to concerns that some of the people would like to attend, and we have public input, but if the public is, the majority of them are working, it's during working hours. Why can't we accommodate to where we can have these meetings, since we have on the agenda public audience, or, public input? It's even difficult for our employees to even get out of work and come and,
The first meeting, ma'am, is just going to be an overview. That evening, there is a legislative grassroots event that Region 1 has scheduled, and Mr. Springsteen and I are scheduled to be there. I don't know who else from the board is going to that event, but that was the reason for the change. But you're right, customarily, budget meetings are held in the afternoon, but since that's just the first overview, it was moved to noon because of that legislative grassroots event at Region 1. Anything else on the calendar, Mr. Springsteen?
No, sir.
Okay, and we'll move on to public audience.
The next item on our agenda is a public comment period. This is the time for citizens, staff, or students to provide their comments to the board. Statements and questions from the audience will not be permitted during other portions of the meeting. So please let us hear from you now if you have comments to present. To have your comments heard tonight, your name and the subject matter of your comments must appear on the sign-in sheet, which is located in the rear of the meeting room. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes to complete his or her comments. With all due courtesy, the presiding officer will strictly enforce that time limit. If a group of people want to be heard on the same topic, the board asks that they designate a spokesperson to avoid a needless repetition. The board has adopted rules to preclude the abuse of open forum by, for example, anyone uselessly repeating the same comment or complaint meeting after meeting. All participants must understand that if your comment in the judgment of the presiding officer constitutes a complaint against an employee or officer, the presiding officer will interrupt and ask you to stop and direct you to proceed with the BISD's formal grievance procedures, be that DGBA, FNG, or GF Local. With those cautions in mind, we will now be glad to hear the general comments.
Our first speaker is Kathleen Jimenez, Premier Movie Documentary Event.
Mr. Cortez, Mr. Springston, members of the board, and Mrs. Pena. The behavior specialist behind me and myself would like to extend a heartfelt thanks for the rare opportunity that we had a couple of weeks ago to attend a premiere movie event that really was and did document the life of Temple Grandin. And Temple Grandin is a brilliant woman. She has her PhD. She currently is a professor at one of the universities in Colorado. She speaks nationally, and she has autism. And we each were sent an invitation to attend this event, so we felt very honored. But besides that, we were so excited to represent BISD at a function like this. There were a few other districts and region centers that attended as well. However, people were coming up to us, several people came up to us, and were very thrilled that BISD, that Brownsville was represented. When the premiere completed, Temple Grandin got on the podium and talked about a little more, expanded on her life. She answered questions. throughout the whole activity, if you will, we were able to actually speak one-on-one with Temple Grandin and kind of pick her brain, which was awesome. And then we were also able to speak to her mother, and her mother just added so much insight to what we already do that we feel really, really blessed to have had the opportunity. It's probably one of the best professional developments and I think I can speak for the behavior specialist, have ever attended, because we consider ourselves fairly well-versed in Temple Grandin's books and some of her articles, but nothing compares to talking to her one-on-one. And that just really has made our year, and we are very excited. I know they're out at the campuses sharing what we learned with our teachers who work with students with autism, and so we just wanted to say a big thank you for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
And thank you for a wonderful job at Special Services, ma'am.
And thank you. And one other thing, it is airing this whole month on HBO, and it's well worth your while to watch it. Temple Grandin did say that the entire movie is very factual, and they actually use some of her drawings in the movie, so it just gives really neat insight to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is George Borrego, miscellaneous.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ya mero. Mr. Ruben Cortez, you look good in that chair as chairman. Mr. Springston and board members that are left, administration and the audience that's listening. I have some comments about some different items. Ms. Peña, I welcome your remarks about Porter and the portable situation over there. And I was reminded as as president of AOBE and associated with NEA, which is the National Education Association, Porter, about 25 years ago, came out in the magazine because it has had the most portables of any campus in the country back then. So we've made progress. But I do understand when we build a building and the principals don't want to release the portables, because the reason they built the building was for the portable, is what Mr. Arteaga said, and I echo his comments. To be a floating teacher is a pain. So if they can convince the superintendent to keep a couple of the portables, then it's 2 less teachers that are floating. It's a constant problem, and it is going to take a lot of money. I've been attending these meetings for a long time, and I think that we're well on our way to trying to solve that problem. But thank you for thinking about your school. Ms. Presas, on powerlifting. Oh, you're not here.
She stepped to the back. She'll be right back.
I agree that we need to install it in the campuses or whatever it is, whatever it's called, because it's going to help our kids to be more successful. If you'll study, like Tito Mata says, some of the campuses, some of the districts that are very successful, they have powerlifting in their curriculum. And finally, I needed to make a few comments about something that's been happening lately. You all, as elected officials, are held to a very high standard that you must live up to. I have here the definition of integrity. When you choose to run, this must be one of your guidelines. Integrity, adherence to moral and ethical principles, soundness of moral character, and honesty. Is it Mr. or is it Dr.?
Are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? There should be no question.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Borrego. John Clark, miscellaneous.
Good evening, Mr. Springston, Mr. Cortez, members of the board.
Oh, John.
A person cannot call himself a doctor if he's not a doctor. A person cannot call himself a trustee if he can't be trusted. I represent the Brownsville Classroom Teachers Association, and that's an association of teachers, and we work very hard to carry out what is part of the district's mission statement, which is to create responsible citizens. And responsible citizens participate in the community in a responsible way, which includes representing oneself accurately at all times. And I have spoken to my members, and they have been unanimous in their feelings that a certain member of our community has not lived up to the responsibilities that his position calls for. And I am calling on the board to do three things. One is to investigate the validity of a person's professional claim, a person that might be serving as a trustee. Two, report to the community at a board meeting the findings of that investigation. And three, take any appropriate actions that might be called for as a result of those investigations. I'd like to talk about some other topics also. From things that I have heard here tonight. One is I was very happy to hear Mr. Arteaga speaking about portables. It's a mixed blessing. They're not the beautiful houses that we would like to live in, but they do provide teachers an opportunity not to float, which is a tremendous burden on teaching and actually impacts instruction. So it's a tough choice, you know, build, stay with portables, or a combination. Please keep as many portables as you can so that teachers don't have to float. This makes a tremendous difference in their workday and in their instruction. Also, we've discussed middle school sports. This evening, the swimming, golf, and tennis. And I'd like to tell you that that's an opportunity for something that the teachers really care about, which is to really work with students. And it's an opportunity to work with a student outside of the classroom. There's just a different dynamic, and I think we all know that that can be have a lifetime impact, that wonderful relationship that a student can have with a coach. And so if we can expand and maximize those activities for young people, it'd be a great benefit there. We've got budget coming up, and I want to say that we've got great teachers who are working hard for our kids and their families here, and let's keep helping those teachers. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, you guys, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Mr. Borrego, Mr. Clark, as representatives of the teacher organization, I know there's been a lot of scuttlebutt on doctor, no doctor. You know, and I've received calls myself, and I assure you, Mr. Springston will inquire and find out whether it is or isn't. And at some point, visit with you guys and get some information to you guys. Move on to open meeting grievance.
Item 13, Level 3 grievance number 00609-10, Leonardo V. Garcia.
Mr. President, they might need a couple of minutes just to
Take a
move.
5-minute recess.
Yes, sir, if you'd so like.
5-minute recess.
Recess.
5 turning into 10.
Okay, we'll reconvene. Mr. Springston, Mr. Saldana.
We're back in session in a level 3 grievance appeal of Leonardo V. Garcia, grievance number 006-09/10. It's a level 3 grievance. Present for the grievant is Mr. John Shergold, attorney for the grievant, Mr. Leo Garcia, the grievant, and representing administration will be Ms. Susan Fox, assistant superintendent for human resources. Mr. Shergold, you've been here with us before, and you are familiar with the procedure. Before we get started, I'm going to ask the members of the board if there's anyone here that for any reason cannot be reasonably objective in the consideration of the level 3 grievance and the making of a decision in that regard. Is there anybody here that would be wanting to recuse themselves? Very well, proceeding. Mr. Shergold, as you're aware, this is a level 3. This is a non-evidentiary hearing in which the board has had an opportunity to review both the level 1 and level 2 documentation in addition to the audio discs that have been provided and recorded of both of those proceedings. This is not an opportunity to introduce any new evidence or testimony, but rather an opportunity for you to make any legal argument or summation that you feel supports your client's position and why the board should overturn the level 2 decision from which you appeal. As you are aware, you have 10 minutes in which to conduct your argument. You can divide that time if you wish and reserve some time for rebuttal. Would you like to divide your time, sir?
As the board knows, I'm a football fan, so let's do 7 starting and 3, a touchdown and a field goal, please.
I'll give you a signal at 6.5 minutes, Mr. Shergold, indicating that you have 30 seconds left on your 7 minutes, and thereafter you consume as much time as you feel necessary in presenting your client's case. Ms. Fox, as you're aware also, administration has 5 minutes in which to present their case in an uninterrupted fashion. If there's any further questions or comments by anyone, we're ready to proceed. Mr. Presiding Officer. Mr. Shergold.
Thank you, Mr. Saldana. Thank you very much. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a big voice, so hope you can hear me. It's an honor to be here tonight in front of this board. I am honored to represent Mr. Leo Garcia. Mr. Garcia is an employee of this district for 38 years, and he is also honored to be in front of you to present his grievance. The grievance that we're here today to present is a grievance that I think is about fundamental fairness and about what's right. My client had entered into an agreement which is marked as an exhibit, and Mr. Saldana didn't go through the exhibits because you guys do a good job and they're usually already marked. But you should have an exhibit in your file. That would be agreement exhibit number 1, and that was an agreement that Mr. Garcia entered into with the school district. It was signed by Mr. Springston around September 9th of 2009. The agreement, we won't get into the specifics of what occurred. That's not what we're here to talk about tonight. But we are going to talk about the agreement in the context of a lawful enforcement of a contract. That's the context that we're going to speak it in terms of tonight. If you would turn to page 3 of 6 of the agreement, if you look at section B, as in boy 2, you'll see at the very top that it states that BISD agrees to transfer employee to the maintenance department. That's very critical. The second critical point is section D2 on the same page. States it is expressly understood and agreed that the terms hereof are contractual and not merely recitals, and the employee and BISD intend to be and are hereby bound to the terms of this agreement. Those are the 2 critical points that I want to let the board keep in mind. Mr. Garcia transferred as an assistant principal to a position at the maintenance department in September 2009. Sometime in November 2009, Mr. Garcia received contact from an administrator who is here representing the district tonight, Mrs. Fox. At that time, 2 months later, you'll see as evidenced in Grievance Exhibit 2, Mr. Garcia was informed that his pay grade was to go from pay grade 5 to pay grade 3. Ms. Fox also explained that if you look at Grievance Exhibit 3, that pay grade 3 would basically mean that he would be at the midpoint of that pay grade, which pays approximately $59,874. Now, that's a $33,000 pay cut that Mr. Garcia took 2 months after he found out about the change that wasn't specified in the contract. Now, the district has honored its obligation to pay Mr. Garcia to the end of this school year, 2009-2010 school year. However, it's been made known to Mr. Garcia that starting next year and any years afterwards, that his pay cut will be, as I stated, to a level 3 step and will be taking approximately a $33,000 pay cut. The explanation that we've received in the grievance hearings is that there were 13 other employees that the district has been able to do this to. Therefore, what is your complaint? My complaint is that my client did not have the meeting of the minds in this agreement that was signed in September 2009 that the district was going to withdraw $33,000 of his salary in a future year. Now, the district has cleverly made an argument that the next contract year means that his pay can be changed and that it doesn't make any difference what was in the contract he signed or what wasn't, that it wasn't specified that he was going to get the same pay in the future years. However, this is a main departure of what I understand is to be contract law, because the fact that there's a major departure from an agreement without mentioning anything about having a deduction to be made of $33,000. The district believes that they're very confident that they can survive any challenge to a contract. Well, we're very confident that we can produce enough evidence to show that the district, in bad faith, decided to reduce his salary by $33,000 based on what's been done in the past to other employees. I want to make sure that the board also knows that the district has placed Mr. Garcia in a pay grade 3 at the midpoint. When asked, how did that get determined? It was based upon the responsibilities that he would be doing in his new job. However, when asked, why is he at the midpoint at step grade 3? The answer was, well, if we had put him at the top of pay grade 3, we would have had to gone to the superintendent and the board for that. Well, I guess we're here tonight to let you know that a 38-year veteran was put in step grade 3 and reduced $33,000 and has now been told that the board could have had this brought to them or to the superintendent to put him at the top of the step 3 grade. However, I want to go ahead and argue from your policy. I am referring to your policy regarding demotions, and I'm looking at your policy employee handbook, because in the level 2 response, the level 2 hearing officer stated that that the district followed policy in determining the right pay that my client should receive. I want to point out that it states that an employee who is transferred in the fashion that my client did that it says that no more than 9%, this is very important, only 9%.
30 seconds, sir.
Yes, 9%, and I'm going to get back to this when I get back, 9% can be taken away. So you have level 5 to step 3, level 5 to level 3, so you have 9 plus 9 is 18, and then midpoint at 3 is 4, 22%. multiply 22% by 90,000, which is what he's making now, that's $20,000. 90 minus 20 is 70. Even using the administration's own format, they're still underpaying him by $5,000. Isn't that nice?
Administration.
Thank you. Mr. Cortez, members of the board. Upon returning from administrative leave, Mr. Leo Garcia was placed at his request in the maintenance department. There was a vacancy at the time as a maintenance supervisor level 3, which, as Mr. Shergold indicated, is on page 3 of the compromise release and settlement agreement that was signed on September 9th, 2009. Mr. Garcia was allowed to keep his current level 5 pay until the end of his 2009-2010 contractual year. The letter referred to in Mr. Garcia's grievance is one which is standard practice to issue to employees who are reassigned by the superintendent to an assignment requiring adjustments of days worked and/or salary as per the compensation plan. In the previous 2 school years, 2007-2008 and 2008-2009, 12 similar letters to teachers and/or administrators have been issued when the superintendent has reassigned the individuals to a different assignment requiring a salary adjustment. Mr. Garcia's contract, assignment, and salary will be commensurate with the board-approved employee compensation plan for 2010-2011. Mr. Garcia's compromise release and settlement agreement makes no mention of days worked or salary for the requested maintenance position and only encompasses the 2009-2010 school year. Again, administration has reviewed the compromise release and settlement agreement, and administration sees no violation in the agreement as signed by both Mr. Leo Garcia and Mr. Brett Springston, then interim of superintendent of schools. That concludes my presentation.
Ms. Shergold, you have exactly 3 minutes.
Yes. I'd like you to refer back to page 3 of 6, item B2. I just heard that the contract now has 2009-2010, that was what the agreement was. BISD agrees to transfer employee to the maintenance department. It doesn't say that that was going to be enforced through 2009-2010. It says nothing about the pay reduction. And again, I believe that we've just heard the district's defense, which is we've done it to 12 other employees, therefore we can go ahead and do it to this employee. I don't believe that that is a good legal argument. I don't believe that it's fair, and I don't think that Mr. Garcia, again, there was no meeting in the minds. He never agreed to having his salary reduced by $33,000. Again, I have the employee handbook right here. This is what the school district lives by. This is not what I made up. This is on page 20 of 62. Even if Ms. Fox wants to go ahead and have him go to pay grade 3, how does she explain the fact that he was reduced by more than 22% from pay grade 5 to pay grade 3? We still don't know how they get that answer. We don't know. The fact is, because if you look at this policy, there is no way that you can get to the midpoint level at pay grade 3 with the mathematical formula that's spelled out here on page 20 of 62. Pay grade 5, you go down 9. Pay grade 4, go down another 9%. That's the maximum. You could be 2, and we're using the max. Pay grade 3, take half of that, 4.5. You're looking at 22, 23%. Okay, do the math. Multiply that by 90,000 when he's making. That means that he would still be making $70,000 at pay grade 3. But Ms. Fox has said that he's only going to make $65,000. And that's taking their numbers and agreeing with them that there was no breach of the agreement to begin with. So even if you say, no, Mr. Leo Garcia doesn't deserve that, well then what about the fact that they're using the wrong numbers and their alternative solution? Mr. Garcia would like to go ahead at this time, and he'd like to make a few comments.
I want to thank the members of the board for allowing us to have this meeting. And I want everybody to know that this is not personal. It's business. Thank you for having us in open session. I want to make sure that other employees that feel like I feel have the right to pursue their legal rights. And again, because the district has done this to other employees doesn't make it right. It's too bad they didn't have John Shergold representing them, because he knows what to do in cases like this that are unjust. Evidence is clear that this matter is being capricious, arbitrary, and bad faith. I want to thank John Shergill for his efforts in trying to bring proper closure to this matter. And if it does not happen here, we plan to pursue all legal remedies in order to have this addressed properly. We want justice that is merit. Enough is enough. Ya estuvo suave.
And in closing, I would just like to quote Shakespeare. One thing I'll remember from Shakespeare, let justice be done, or the heavens shall surely fall. Please, let's do justice for Mr. Garcia. Thank you.
That's time, Mr. Cortez, as presiding officer for the matter. You all can deliberate, and if you all wish to consult with me regarding any legal matters, you are also entitled to do that in executive session.
Besides the information that you all reviewed in your package, does anybody have any questions for council? Yes. Okay, then we'll go to executive session to consult with attorney.
And for the record, no objections. Thank you.
We reconvene after discussing an executive session with board attorney. Item 14, Ms. Pat.
Board action on level 3 grievance 06/09-10 Leonardo V. Garcia.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to uphold?
Got a motion to uphold.
On second level.
Uphold level 2.
By Ms. Garcia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Colunga. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Item number 17.
Recommend approval for students, coaches, and administrators from Benavides, Egley, Paredes, Hudson, Garza, Ortiz, Martin, Russell, Vela, Oliveira, Falk, Stillman, Hanna, Porter, Pace, and Rivera schools to travel to compete at the National Chess Championships held in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Columbus, Ohio, and Atlanta, Georgia, from budgeted district-wide campus and booster 2009-2010 funds. Services to be rendered are subject to district needs and funding.
Mr. Sayas.
My question was, I was noticing fiscal implications, and it says 12 students funded by district-wide chess funds. It's going to cost $144,000 to take this one trip?
Per team.
Yes, sir.
And that's cheap.
Per team.
And that's because a lot of our teams didn't make it. But next year, if those changes that I brought up are made, it'll
It's
probably
gonna be
it'll be
300?
it'll be double that.
Yes, sir. And that's what you want.
Well, we're going to need to look at
We're
this
gonna
in
talk
our
about that at
budget.
Yes, sir.
And
Because
This is a good thing.
This is a huge, yeah.
Mr. Cortez?
People that are being left out is that middle column that says 4th through 10th place teams. See all those schools there?
I mean, that number, that one trip is almost the cost of what these guys were asking us tonight for the,
Yeah, but that's a direct impact to that child competing at a national tournament.
I'm not
That goes
complaining about the
to-
cost. I'm just saying that I don't remember this being on our budget, so we need to really look at that.
This is in our budget.
It's we have a
But the
$400,000.
96 is.
All of this. The chess budget is what, $400,000?
But some of these are booster funds. If you look at your material, Mr. Cortez, some of this is parents' funds and booster
sir.
funds, and it's not all coming from the
One of my children is going through booster funds.
booster funds. Okay.
Yes,
How about parent
because they
funds?
didn't qualify, and well, there's parent funds involved. And of course, parents have a great cost in this too. I got to pay for my own flight. This is not school district travel. This is me as a parent going, so I have to pay for my own flight. You know.
Mr. Cortez?
Yes, Ms. Peña.
While we're on this subject, Century 21 grant, I know that I've talked about chess before because I know for a fact that San Benito School District allocates 1,000 of that to their chess program. And I know that I've asked before because, we find it a hard time that's a lot of money and we need more, like Mr. Cortez says. And if things change to the way they were at the beginning, you're going to fund more teams next year. Can we, and I've asked last year and I've asked before I got on the board and I'm asking today, can we look and see how we can allocate some of these funds to come from that grant? And maybe we have to go and talk to the schools that are doing it, how they're doing it, because we seem not to be able to do it. I don't know. And short of me actually going and physically doing all the research, which is where I'm at now, but I prefer that the district does it, can we look at how Century 21 grant can be applied to the chess program because there are districts that are using it? Please.
Ms. Monfils, I know that we looked in this when we talked about this before. Am I correct?
I
Yes,
move to
sir.
approve item 17.
Second.
Second,
Take your pick.
Me.
Mini Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Item number 22.
Review, discuss, approve, and possible action regarding yearly travel expenses for each BISD board member not to exceed $15,000 in a fiscal budgeted school year. Travel for conference, training, and/or participation with campus achievement awards. All BISD travel must be only in the U.S. Board member request.
Ms. Garcia.
Um,
22, ma'am.
Item number 22. The reason why I brought this to the board is because we had discussed it on one of those audit meetings, and the thing is that I know that for some of us that that are in those extra, that participate in other organizations, or that you're part of that committee, I know that there's going to be more of an expense for those of us that are in those committees. But if we can kind of adopt or implement something within our budget so we can just stay within our means instead of having to go over budget, and like that we can work around it, and like that if at any point in time anybody is invited by any of our students to go and attend one of their conference or competition, that we select where we want to go to and what committees we want to attend to or what trainings we want to go to. I know that last year a lot of us didn't do a lot of the trips. This year some of us have done a little bit more because we, like I said, I believe Mr. Cortez, are involved in several committees, and I know that your expense has to be a little higher than some of us. So I'm asking that if possibly we can adopt or approve a $15,000 fiscal per board member. And
Would this be something more, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Would this be, I'm sorry.
Wasn't sure if she was
Uh,
finished.
I'm sorry. Would this be something that could be brought up since we are on the budget? Like,
Should be brought up in budget. Yeah.
it should be brought up in budget before we just go and just jump into a budget change like this?
We can't make a budget change under this type of agenda item under a board member request. But I think she just wanted to kind of get some information, yeah, and have a
Some discussion on
about
it? Yeah, the only thing I don't like about it is right now, I think the way it is, Ms. Perezas, is I think we just have a general budget for all travel. And some of us travel more than others or whatever. If you put this, then it might restrict some people from traveling that travel more than us. I know like Mr. Cortez travels more because he's involved in all these national committees and gonna be on the cube board and all that kind of stuff. So obviously he's gonna travel more. But good things come out of these things, like the $26 million funding that he found out about in Washington D.C. I mean, good things come out of that. I'm of the opinion that maybe we just keep it the way it is, and if for whatever reason we need to, when we're doing our traveling and stuff, if we need to, how close do we even get to our budget? I never seen it brought up as a budget amendment to increase our travel. Do we even get close to our budget?
At times, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But at that time, we can do a budget amendment or do an ad hoc, like I think what one of your concerns is, and it's a very valid concern, is that sometimes we can only travel like to, let's say, for
Conference.
continuing education and conferences and that stuff. And once in a while, I think it's proper for us to travel with the kids to some of the competitions that they have, and that's what you're talking about, right?
correct.
And I don't know if we should just have it open to travel at any time on those kind of things, or it should be more on an ad hoc, like when you know you're going to want to travel with those kids on a certain day, just bring it before the board and we can approve that type of travel. Because as it is right now, what is the policy as far as traveling? What can we ask to travel to? What can we ask for district funds to travel to,
Okay.
as it is right now?
And if I may be varying just a little bit off policy here,
Do
but
you
you
know
can
where it
correct
is,
me if-
please?
Yes.
Before can I get a verbatim, does somebody have it nearby where we can see
Mr.
it?
Saldana, do you know what it is? BBE, BBA?
I'm pulling it up.
But
I had it,
basically, it says, I got a pretty good verbatim almost. It's, you're entitled to to be reimbursed for reasonable travel expenses that are incurred in the execution of your duties as school board members. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Mr. Saldaña.
Yeah.
Would that, and if I, Mr. Cortez, if I can ask, because like Ms. Presas was saying and Mr. Sayas, sometimes the kids in the activities, they invite you and they really want you there. Like you have Blue Ribbon Awards and you have certain things, and it means a lot to them that we take time out of our schedule to be there to represent them and to share the allocation they get. And for some reason, sometimes, we run out of money to be taking trips with our kids, our husbands, and then this. It gets expensive. If it was up to us, we'd go to everything, but it does get expensive. And I just need to know who would have the authority. It would be, I guess my question is, it would be up to Mr. Springer to say, no, well, nah, I don't want you to go. If you go, pay your own way. Okay. And I did. I have. And I'm okay with that. But after a while, I don't want to go and tell the students, well, I ran out of money, so I couldn't go with you, which is not their fault. But then they'll bring up to our attention, well, so-and-so traveled. And so I don't know. Again, what's the policy? What's the reasoning? Because this way, when I go, I'm going to be real upset if I hear that someone got approved to go somewhere where I had to go and put out of my pocket, because now I know you're being unfair. It's easy to say no to me, but why didn't you say no to that person? And I have an issue with that. And I don't want to tell the kids no, because to me, when a school, a teacher, a group of kids comes and says, Ms. Peña, will you be there when they give us that award? We'd really like for you to be there with us. And to me, that is such an honor for them to go out of their way to ask me. I'm like, wow, I mean something to them, and that impresses me. So I want to make sure we have something written, and Rick's right. If you limit it, then Mr. Cortez, who's on every committee, congratulations, by the way.
I still need to get elected.
No,
in April.
yeah, you will. I'm sure you will. But if he has expenses, but what he comes back with is things that are going to help our
By the way,
district.
if I get elected, they reimburse my travel.
Yes.
So it won't come out of district
But
resources.
I'm sure that's not the only committee.
Huh?
I'm sure you'll get into more committees. So that's the point, that it helps us. It helps us what you do, because you find out things that we can go out and get that none of us would have known about. That's why people get ahead, because we have people that are out there looking for us, looking for stuff and keeping a lookout on us. And I appreciate that. So I'd like to know what it is, what the guidelines are, and I just want it to be applied equally across the board. That's all I ask.
Mike? Read the policy so
yes,
they can.
The board travel is dictated by or directed by BBG Legal and Local. BBG Legal is quite short and simple. Local funds and state funds not designated for specific purposes may be used for purposes determined by the board to be necessary in the conduct of the public schools. Reimbursement of travel expenses for board members is not illegal if the reimbursement is determined to be necessary in the conduct of the school and to serve a proper public purpose. That is the general criteria that you are allowed to use in legal. And that's out of the education code, I believe it's section 45. Your local travel policy, BBG local, basically reflects the legal. Board members shall be reimbursed for reasonable expenses incurred in carrying out board business at the board's request and for reasonable expenses incurred while attending meetings and conventions as official representatives of the board. And it talks about the budget, how you all agree to what your travel budget will be as a whole at the beginning of the year. It talks about no use of federal or earmarked state funds. And basically what this is the board, you all by a majority vote determine what is a reasonable public purpose. What is the board business that you all are carrying out, and if it's reimbursable or not. There is another section of the policy that says you all are the final interpreters of your policy. All right, so you all interpret and take a board vote and say there's this particular convention that's not real clear as to whether it serves a public purpose or not. You view whatever it is, the itinerary or the purpose of that convention or seminar is, and then you vote. And whatever that vote is, that's the interpretation of that policy by this board. And that's how it works more or less. I do know you all have, traditionally budget a single amount at the beginning of the year and then work with that in the superintendent's office. But those are the two policies that affect board travel and expenses. I believe the current budgeted amount is 40,000.
Ms. Garcia? Anything else you want to add in this?
No, I guess we'll just discuss it on this upcoming budget.
Mr. Colunga?
Give me the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. The travel expenses for conferences would be important in the continuing education requirements for board members. However, on the proposed increase or designation of 15,000, it would be increasing the amount of training. Currently, we're undergoing a training that involves over 110 hours that should last us a few years as far as board training. But as far as the participation with the achievement awards, then that would be a question of how much to designate for that purpose, other than conferences or training. One question I had was whether or not designating 15,000 per board member, if that would be a possible gift of public funds, if you designate that each board member will have a designated budget for travel, or would that be any possible misinterpretation on the public funds or the use of public funds?
Mr. Cortez, members of the board, I don't believe so, Mr. Colunga. The amount that you would set is strictly a budgetary issue. Now, how you would approve specific situations, that's when the issue of gift of public funds, like if we're all going to, the Calgary Stampede to see the rodeo this year, and agree that that's what you're going to use the budgeted amount for, you may have a challenge on that as to whether that's a gift of public funds. But the budget is really a policy consideration for what you all said. The expenditure of that budgetary amount is when you need to apply the public purpose and school business criteria to it.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia?
And I think we're all we all understand which trainings we need to go to and which we don't, or when we can travel with the students if we're invited, like to a state competition and so forth. And I don't think that we're going out of line in any form or fashion, because as I see the reports here, just in the previous year, in 2008, 2009, we all stayed, except for one of us board members, we all stayed below 15,000. So it's not like we're going to take advantage or abuse, the tax dollars. And the only board member, as we've discussed, is because he participates in other committees at the national level. So, for instance, we have a board member right now currently that the only expenses he's got is $1,300. And we are already in the year 2010. So if our fiscal year is going from July through December, I mean, we can see that we're pretty understanding as to, and some of us that work or have prior commitments or engagements, some of us can't even attend some of the trainings. So this is just something that I felt that maybe it was necessary, because I had spoken to Mr. Aguilar, that maybe we could discuss as to a set amount for each board member. If we use it, fine. If we don't use it, well, we don't use it. If we end up using 6,000 out of those 15,000, well, because that's all we used. So if at any point in time, the money's still going to stay there, it's just that we would say, okay, It would probably be easier for the secretary also to tally and to say, okay, you guys only have left for 1 trip or 2 trips. At least it's easier for us to figure out where we're at, and we can still continue to make 1 or 2 more trips. But, you know, the training that we have right now ongoing with the CRSS, you know, maybe it'll last a few years, like Mr. Colunga said, but,
And Mr. Cortez, by the way, we're not paying for that training, am I right?
But
We get a grant.
correct me
We
if
got a
I'm wrong.
grant for that.
Yeah.
One of the things you're trying to clarify too is when can we go, right?
mhm.
And
And-
I think we need a little bit clearer standard than that. Who makes the
Because
final
it's so
call?
broad,
Policy.
The board does.
Board
No, no,
does.
but
Board votes.
Board,
That's a board policy.
Board-
well, like for instance, let's say they're giving Blue Ribbon Awards in Austin.
right.
Let's give an example like that. Do we have to have a board agenda and approve it to go? That's my point. Who makes the decision?
'Cause it's,
And what is he driven by? Just no, yes?
Probably the uniqueness
Maybe.
of the situation.
I don't like it today.
I mean, it's not every day you get an NEA blue ribbon school.
No, that's the one.
Not every day you win the Broad Prize. There's special circumstances.
I know, my
like
point.
that.
My point is by what standard does Mr. Springsteen choose that?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Cortez, if I may, that's my question. Let's say you get invited and you travel with the board to a Blue Ribbon Award, and you go to Washington, and then they come back and they say, "We're going to be honored in Austin in front of everybody. Can you please come?" And I said, "Well, I can see if I can work into the schedule." And you ask, "Oh, I'd like to attend." Okay, but there's no money for that. I said, "Okay, well, I want to attend, even if I have to pay for it." Okay, good, pay for it. You can go. Okay. That's what happens. I'm okay with that, but I want to know. You mean that could have been covered? That's my thing. It could have been covered. So I say the ultimate role is Mr. Springsteen. Like that's what.
That's what my understanding is.
Yeah. So, but what is that criteria used to justify? No, not today. Like you said, you get blue.
I think that's been reviewed in years.
let me
I
finish.
don't think that budget for the board has been.
No, let
looked
me
at in
finish.
years. I think it's just to carry over.
But I
at
guess
least
But you brought up
of
a
the
good
same
point. It
amount.
happens once in a lifetime, Mr. Cortez. You get a blue ribbon once in a lifetime.
Mike,
If you're told no now, maybe 30 years before another blue ribbon comes around. That's all I'm asking.
Mr. Saldana, I guess
didn't go to
the ultimate
BC,
question
they
is, I know you just read the standard to us, but the interpretation of that standard, the ultimate decision of that standard is it a subjective decision by Mr. Springsteen?
No, it's a subjective decision by the board.
Okay, so then if Mr. Springsteen told me, no, you can't go to that because I'm not going to pay for it, whatever, she could have gone to the board to ask him for approval to go.
Sure.
Okay, that's,
Yeah, but
Ultimately, as board, this is local policy that you're trying to implement the general guidelines of and the general criteria is, is it necessary in the conduct of the school, and does it serve a public purpose, a proper public purpose? That's the criteria that you utilize to determine that. Your local policy, on the other hand, talks about a variety of other things. Now, it does talk about Mr. Springsteen approving and not approving it, okay? And I'm not quite sure I understood your question right now.
is it a subjective standard, just based on what he feels?
How he
Well,
feels.
ultimately, yeah, because it is because of what's written in there. It's interpretation of law. It's interpretation of a standard.
Right.
If you're saying it's objective in terms of what a reasonable superintendent in the same or similar circumstances would interpret it, well, you'd
No,
have to
that's an
go-
objective standard,
That's an
subjective.
objective standard. And I don't know if
I said subjective,
and that's why I'm saying it would be subjective.
right.
It would be,
That's
because
my question.
unless he goes around calling other superintendents and trying to determine what the objective standard is,
Ms. Garcia?
You know, Mr. Springsteen, I know the situation that Ms. Peña had to go through, and I really don't want for any of the other board members to have to go through that, whether it's Mr. Cortez, whether it's Mr. Colunga. So if we can just make sure, as long as it's an event that we feel or that we've been invited to, and the money is there, and that's probably one of the reasons why, because I think as board members, we really, I know that last weekend, you know, some of the board members attended that fine arts competition. I had the privilege, I was honored to attend last year. I enjoyed it. I heard the students sing, the students play. And you know, that's what we're here for. It's not like we're going to make a trip to China and just for pleasure or, you know. But if anything, could we just make sure that we understand that as long as it's something pertaining to an award or a student competition, I mean, we want to be there. I mean, that's what we got elected for. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay.
Well, no action on that?
No, we'll bring it on the budget. I'll make my budget notes.
Okay, we'll move on to item 24.
Mr. Cortez, I motion to approve. I found my information on the backup.
Okay, I got a motion to approve item 24. Do I hear a second?
Second.
24?
Pat, you need to read it first. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Ms. Perez
Okay.
circled it, but she
Okay.
answered her own question.
Recommend approval to pay Ambutech Civil Engineering Group, Inc., $12,609.13, Gomez Mendez Science, Inc., $8,100, D. Wilson Construction Company, $400,260.65, JDS Construction, Inc., $9,395.50, PHI Service Agency, Inc., $15,963.05, Peterson Construction Company Incorporated, $20,271.29, Rabba Kistner Consultants, Inc., $2,725.99, Scoggins Construction, $673,826.45, Texas Descon, $85,807, Texas Precision Air, $17,500, for a grand total of $1,246,459.06, to be paid from Capital Project Fund 631, 632, 633, and 634.
I got a motion?
Motion.
Second.
A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 33.
Recommend approval of budget amendment 082 in the amount of $1,300,000 for Fund 101, food service fund balance.
Mr. Sayas.
Yeah, one of the things that, it's kind of like what you always complain about, Mr. Cortez, is that there's no backup. Just $1,300,000, don't know what it's for, doesn't know where it came from, don't have any information. And that's something that consistent, Mr. Cortez, consistently, I don't see any numbers with that. I see words.
Breakdown. Remember the breakdown?
Remember the breakdown? Remember we talked about that?
Many times.
Many times.
That one liner, I guess, is not explanation enough.
Okay.
It says right there, though, Rick, but it's not very clear. It says the purpose of this budget amendment is to purchase new equipment and furniture for the new high school and middle school.
It's actually the stoves, the ovens, the heaters, the warmers, coolers. You can speak.
But I understand that you want more detail.
Yeah,
But you know what?
you're the one that usually complains about it. I'm complaining about it today.
I do, but I had asked him before the meeting what it was about, and so I didn't have to circle it. So I actually contacted. I contacted Mr. Springston, Mr. Sayas in advance.
Good
so I
evening,
wouldn't
Mr.
boggle it.
Zayas and Mr. Cortez, members of the
Ms.
board.
Mendez.
I can give you an estimate more or less of where that money's going. Equipment will run probably around $436,000 for the high school. Another $400,000 is estimated for the middle school. And the remaining would go towards furniture and some decor for both the middle school and the high school, with 75% of that going towards furnishings in the dining rooms would actually be the seating and tables.
Can you provide just the breakdown to superintendent's office so they can send it to the board at
Sure.
our Friday newsletter?
We can certainly.
Because in the past, and it's not just because of you, in the past we've been very explicit on how we want them to be extremely clear when they present expenses like this, especially one of this size.
The bid for the high school kitchen equipment was approved in December, so we do have actual pricing for that. The bid for the middle school is going to be going out soon, so we don't have actual prices, but of course, it's very similar equipment, so it would be, you know, what you pay for an oven for the high school should be more or less what we pay for an oven for the middle school, with slight price increases that are
So you just provide like
subject
a
to coming out.
projected cost on those?
Yes, no
Okay.
problem.
Any other questions,
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Sayas?
One other question probably for Mr. Ruiz. Where does that put us with our food service fund balance?
She does.
I estimate it'll be around 200,000. I was speaking with Mr. Fuller earlier, and he says somewhere in there between 200,000 and 300,000.
Okay. Well, what did that fund balance ever get up to, Mr. Fuller? Do you know?
Pretty high at one time.
Thank you. Mr. Zayas, to answer your question, probably 6 to 8 years ago, it was about $7 million, $7.5 million.
So how did it get from 7 million to 1.3 down to 200?
Basically, it's a combination of items. Throughout the budget, we started charging them utility costs, which is an allowable cost for food services. But the big kicker here is that our reimbursement rate is not what we're actually getting for revenue.
What do you mean?
Well, basically, they're saying that it to cost for a meal for a student per day is like $2.92. The reimbursement rate is about $2.50, $2.52.
That was one of the things that we brought up at that Washington trip. We're spending $2.92 a meal, but we're getting reimbursed about $2.60. So
every meal we're serving, we're losing approximately 40 cents.
So, and we serve what, about 45,000 students a day?
We serve about 42,000 lunches and about 22,000 breakfasts a day. But the comparison that he actually gave you was in reference to lunch.
So lunch, so 42,000, 50% of that's $22,000 a day that we're losing?
Well, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm sure we could pretty much calculate when we look at the actual reimbursement rate and the actual cost. And this is like a nationwide study. Yeah. Districts nationwide, it's costing like about
well, you need to go to the budget meetings and try to push for your electricity not to get paid out of this anymore, because we're going to run out of funds.
Exactly, that would be a blessing if we could keep that.
It's going to kill us somewhere. It's going to kill your department somewhere along the line.
Actually, we've already had that discussion the last probably 3 weeks ago between ourselves and Ms. Fox. Basically, we do realize with this amendment coming, it's going to really shortchange our fund balance. So we're thinking next year with the electric costs, but by doing so is going to add more cost on our local maintenance side. So I think the cost right now is about $1.3, $1.4 million we're charging food service. So again, if we're not going to charge food service, that's going to be an added $1.4 million to our local maintenance fund right off the bat.
I know, but food service is going to have to survive somehow.
Well, it's one of those things, if they can't afford it now, they're not going to afford it next year.
Yeah.
Again, when they're losing, like you said, close to 40 cents a meal, now they do make up some with a la carte sales, but again, we're still losing 40 cents a meal for these children.
That's a lot of money to lose a day.
That's not the only department that we get funded.
Sure.
Less there's transportation.
Transportation.
The reimbursement rate versus what fuel actually costs is
Doesn't balance.
huge. But you'll hear some of that on Thursday, sir. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Sayas.
Second.
Second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We move on to cast lots, item 39.
Recommend awarding bid number 10-053, Media Center Paper and Printing Supplies district-wide to several vendors and cast lots for items number 78 of said bid, annual bid.
Bid number 1053, Media Center, Paper and Printing Supplies.
You guys really pull these things up. Western Paper Company.
Pena, did you get that? Thank you.
Western Paper Company. Have a motion?
Motion.
Motion
Second.
approved by Mr. Colunga, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Item 43.
Item 43, yes.
Recommend awarding bid number 10-084, Printing Services and Related Items district-wide to several vendors and cast lots for items 30 and 40 of said bid, annual bid.
Item number 1084, this is item number 30.
Professional Printing Incorporated. For item 30.
Bid number 10-084, item number 40.
Specialty Advertisers. Do I have a motion to approve item 43?
So moved.
A motion by
Second.
Mr. Colunga, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Item 46,
Recommend awarding bid number 10-089, repair parts for school buses and support vehicles district-wide to several vendors and cast lots for item 9 of said bid. Annual bid.
This is item number 9.
Nuga Diesel. Diesel.
You get that?
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Peña, second by Mr. Colunga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Can we move on to item number 52?
Recommend awarding bid number 10-095, security equipment installation and repairs for alarm and CCTV district-wide to several vendors. Annual bid.
Mr. Sayas.
Yeah, I had some questions for Ms. Peña on this.
Peña?
Ms. Peña, first question I have is the way you do your bidding on these things. I was noticing that the Circled Industries was lower than American Surveillance Company, and you don't have them as one of the 3 top bidders.
Mr. Sayas, I would get back with you on this question. I need to review the items and the way they were handled and the way they were clustered. We may want to withdraw the 3rd vendor or table it for now. We can go 1st and 2nd vendor of choice.
Okay, one of the other concerns I have is this is exactly like the water issue. This just does, this doesn't do anything for me at all. It doesn't tell me how many dome cameras you plan to use, how many this and that. It's the same exact issue. In other words, if you use 20 digital video recorders, you're going to be at 10 of them, you're at $38,000. And if you use 10 man hours, that's $290. So, we don't have a very good understanding at all by doing it this way. If we don't know what quantities of each one of these were used in a previous year that we can compare to.
I understand, Mr. Sayas, and we will go back to reformulate the bid. However, it is on an as-needed basis, so we don't put a quantity on them. But we can go back and look at the specifications and the way they've gone out in the past and get together with Chief Garcia to make sure that the items that we are going to award are what he is actually funded for.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that it needs to be rebid or anything. I'm just trying to say is with these amounts placed, because I was noticing that American Surveillance charges 25% markup on the manufacturer cost as per specifications, and some of these vendors don't charge any, and the other 2 charge 10%. And I just thought that, in order for us to even be clear, we have to know, okay, last year, how much on all these items did we spend? Just a quantitative analysis.
Yes, sir.
And from there, we can just do the simple multiplication and figure out, okay, which one is the best bid.
Yes, sir. Also, it has to do with each individual vendor certification and as far as the cameras that they service. So therefore, we need to group it in a way that the certification is also there and is available for the repair.
Okay, so you want to table this matter, you think it'd be more appropriate?
Table it, let me,
Go ahead, I'm
before we
sorry.
table it, let me ask a question. But I do agree it should probably be tabled so we can get clearer information. On the first vendor of choice, second vendor of choice, third vendor of choice, if Chief Garcia's office needs to utilize some of these company services, what's the process? I mean, I pick up the phone, I'm Chief Garcia or his staff, and vendors approved, we call first vendor of choice, but they don't answer. Can I automatically move to second vendor of choice?
Yes, sir. And the process is that I have a section in my department. We have junior buyers that actually look and review every PR that comes through to make sure that the item that they are purchasing and the vendor that they are using is on bid. And if we award in a fashion like this, first, second, and third vendor of choice, that of course we always go with the first vendor of choice. If they see or if on their PRs it comes across that they went with either second or third, we question it. We send it back to the originator, in this case Chief Garcia, and we ask them, what is the reasoning behind? Do you have a specific situation that you're not going with the first vendor of choice, but rather the second or the third? 9 times out of 10, Mr. Cortez, is because first vendor of choice does not respond in the time that it is needed. In other words, if I have a surveillance camera out at Hannah High School and I need it repaired within an hour or two, if the first vendor of choice is not available, then we move to the second and the third. But we do get justification. It's either that or the vendor cannot hold the pricing that they had on bid, and we usually receive something in writing from the vendor. There's several issues that come into play, but we do review.
Is something in writing required, though?
Yes. We do require.
From the vendor?
From the vendor.
So if the vendor says he can't go, he's supposed to give you something in writing?
Yes, sir.
Before you move on to vendor 2?
Before I move on to vendor 2. And it is
Nobody should be able to move into second or third vendor until
I get clarification.
vendor 1 says, I can't go because I'm
It's either I cannot deliver the the product on time, or I don't have the item that you are needing, or I cannot produce within the certain time span, or I cannot hold the bid price. A lot of my vendors come back and say, you know what, I can't hold that bid price.
And is that, I guess, is that facilitated through your office or through the department that needs to use the service
The originator,
for which the bid was approved for?
The originator, sir, is the one that provides us with the documentation.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the vendor. It could be that department administrator saying, they never answered.
Exactly
They never
right.
called me back.
Yes, sir.
So I'm documenting that
I've
vendor
called
1
one time.
never
I've called,
responded.
Yes. I've called 2 times. I've called 3 times, and I have no response.
Mr. Cortez?
So it seems pretty, I don't know, I don't think that, I think that's something that we're going to have to sit and and somehow review with Mr. Springston, because it seems it'll be too easy if you got first, second, and third vendor of choice. If I don't know if this happens or if it has, how often it's happened, but it almost seems that, you know, somebody can say they called vendor 1, but then they jump to vendor 3 who charges you 25% higher markup on the product, where vendor 2 charges 0% and vendor 1 charges 10%, and you know,
and I
it
agree
almost
with
seems that we may put ourselves in a situation where we're expending more BISD dollars than we ought to be, because we just jump from A to C instead of A to B if A wasn't available.
And we do, Mr.
vice
Cortez, have documentation on that, and as far as trying to consider whether it is in the best interest of the district to jump from vendor 1 to 2 to 3. And again, a lot of times is the product availability or in the service time that it requires for us to have that.
Ms. Peña?
The same question as Mr. Cortez. When they say, well, we called the vendor 1 and they didn't answer, vendor 2 didn't answer, we called vendor 3. Does your office, does anybody, is there checks and balances here where somebody can say, well, here, let me call them. Hey, they just answered. Well, they didn't answer me an hour ago. who's watching is my question. Because, and another question, let's say you call vendor one and you need a camera. Oh, I don't have it, I'll get it tomorrow. Oh, no, let me call vendor two, he has it right now. Are they allowed to do that also?
If it depends on the need, Ms. Peña, if Chief Garcia deems it necessary or ultimately emergent issue that we need to have it within the hour, then we need to provide that service.
Okay, but who's watching and confirming that they don't answer? That they didn't, who's confirming that vendor one didn't have the item, didn't answer the phone? Who's doing those checks and balances?
We are allowing the originating department to give us that information. When it becomes an issue of it's not there on time, other than it's going to cost me more money, then we come in and focus on that. If it's going to cost us more money, then we are going necessarily off the bid. So if it's a timing issue where if a company is not answering, we allow the originating department. We go by their word, ma'am.
Well, like Mr. Cortez says, it's too easy. It's like circumventing the process. And I, I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just thinking that if you can get it cheaper at a certain place and they didn't answer, so you just go to the next person, or the line was busy, and it's going to cost us more, we need to make every effort to make sure that they didn't, in fact, answer. That someone that decides, well, it didn't answer, let me go to the next one. Because it's not costing them. Do you follow me? It's not
Yes, ma'am.
costing that department. So, el que conteste, let's go with it. Well, these are tax dollars, and right now we got to tighten our belt everywhere.
And I agree, ma'am.
So I'm just wondering, Mr. Springsteen, if we can find some way to have someone oversee that. Otherwise, well, no, they didn't answer, so I went to second one.
Checks and balances.
We need a check and
We
balance
can look at something
process.
through policy and look at the protocols and see.
Yes, just to make sure that we are saving taxpayers' dollars that can be saved and not needlessly throwing them away.
I brought that issue up to Mr. Springsteen about a week and a half ago or so.
And we're talking about a paper trail here and keeping it documented, well documented.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any more questions, Mr. Size, on 52? You
That's it.
want to table to get the information that we
Yeah,
need?
motion to table.
I got a
Second.
motion to table by Mr. Size, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, we move on to closed meeting.
As pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551071, 551072, 551074, 551082, and 551084. Item 58, recommend approval of probationary contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and the 2010-2011 school year counselor, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. Item 59, recommend approval of term Chapter 21 contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and the 2010-2011 school year counselor, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. Item 60, recommend approval of term Chapter 21 contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and the 2010-2011 school year educational diagnostician, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. Item 61, recommend approval of term Chapter 21 contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and 2010-2011 school year career placement officer, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. Item 62, recommend approval of term Chapter 21 contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and the 2010-2011 school year athletic coordinator, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. Item 63, recommend approval of probationary contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and the 2010-2011 school year athletic coordinator, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. Item 64, recommend approval of probationary contractual personnel for the 2009-2010 school year and a term Chapter 21 contractual personnel for the 2010-2011 school year athletic coordinator, subject to receipt of all outstanding documentation. And 12.
Executive session, and we're going to take up items 58,
I'm sorry.
59, 60, and 61.
Move to approve.
I got a motion to approve
I second.
by Mr. Sayas, second by Catalina Presas for 58, 59, 60, and 61. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motions carry. Item number 62.
62, they put it in two. One is for the athletic coordinator of Porter. That part of 62, I move to approve.
I second it.
We had a motion to approve the Porter section of item 62. I had a second, motion by Mr. Sias, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
There's also,
I got item number,
you voted nay on 62,
yes, sir?
Porter? Is that what you said?
I voted,
Or were you asking for a nay?
it's one motion. You guys,
No, we're splitting it up.
We're splitting it up.
They gave us two
okay,
coaches
well,
and
do
one.
we have to procedurally split it up, Mike, before Rick just?
Mr. Sias' motion clearly indicated the Porter
Part one.
High School
Okay.
position.
I move to approve. I approve, yes.
Then you approve that?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead with the second part of your motion.
Okay, the second part of my motion is 62 verse, about the Hannah Athletic Coordinator. Motion to deny.
I got a motion by Mr. Sias to deny.
I second it.
Got a second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. Motion carries. Item number 63.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Sias.
What school is this? I'm sorry.
I got a motion to
this
approve
is
by
Rivera.
Mr. Sias. This is for
Rivera.
Rivera. I got a motion to approve
I
by
second.
Mr. Sias. Second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 64.
Motion to deny.
I got a motion
I
to
second.
deny by Mr. Sias on item 64. Got a second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries. Okay, item number 11, announcements. Number 67, Ms. Pat.
Next scheduled board meeting of the Board of Trustees is on March 2nd, 2010, at the Administration Building at 5:30 PM.
Princeton?
One last announcement is that I do want to congratulate Mr. Cortez on his being nominated for the Cube Urban Board.
To be on the steering committee for the
Be on
Cube.
the steering committee.
It's a
That is
national organization. It's a
national, and it's affiliate for everything that we're doing in urban education, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
The other one? We didn't use the other.
Any other announcements? Mr. Sias, did you figure out that date for that facilities meeting, sir? We asked you to think about 2 hours ago?
Sir, I haven't had enough time to think in these last 2 hours. I'm sorry. No.
Can you get back to Mr.
I'll
Springston
get-
before the end of the week?
Yes, I
and
can.
Pick a day?
I will.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Hey, let's go.
Good night, Brownsville.
Good night.
Good night, Brownsville.
10:55.
This